afternoon, everybody. Welcome back again to the special talks I hold at the stand 32 from Shanshan Wang gallery at Chelsea Antiques and Fine Art Fair. And today I'm going to give you the last talk on Japanese and Korean ceramics. I know that after the first few days, you all have become the expert in early Chinese art. So I thought today I would provide you with something entirely different, but also associated with the entire Chinese history of art. We can say that Korea and Japan both have their own ceramic traditions in parallel with Chinese history, starting from Neolithic period of time. However, things did happen differently. One, the stoneware, meaning the ceramics fired at higher temperature, were invented starting from 10th century. There were lots of cultural exchange, people sailing in between Korea and China, between Japan and China. They arrived in China. They were super interested in the green glazed Chinese stoneware or later porcelain. And because their imperial court appreciated those Chinese porcelain, so a lot have been brought to Korea and Japan. And in parallel, in Korea and Japan, their local civil kilns have been super well developed to supply the people with utensils without glaze. Let me start with the Korean celadon. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with celadon. They are they are a group of stoneware fired above 1,100 degrees, or porcelain fired about 1,300 degrees C, covered by the greenish glaze. They were super popular during the Song dynasty in China, meaning starting from 11th century AD. Lots have been brought to Korea, and the imperial court there treasured them. So the technique has also been brought to Korea. However, what has been really developed were the color, the olive color of celadon glaze in Korea, and also the inlay pattern in Korea. So the only difference, as soon as you see the white motifs, patterns on the celadon, you know immediately that it was made in Korea during the Goryeo dynasty, meaning in between 12th and 15th century. So how to make it? Usually you have you shape the bowl or the vase or the jar, and you carve the surface and you fill in it with white slits. So that's why it's called inlaid sangam in Korean language. The popular motifs at that period are pomegranate with a lot of seeds, signifying many children, or chrysanthemum, signifying prosperity, wealth, and good luck. And plus, you quite often find those cloud shapes, Chinese Chinese. Also, on the outside surface,
enjoy the rest of the show. Keep thinking about that piper.
The inlay color can be white and black. like this one, the chrysanthemum have the black leaves. Apparently, the color varied with period of time. At the beginning of Koguryo dynasty, it showed more greenish color with tune of olive color. And with time, the color became more and more creamy, greenish like this one. And also, the irrelated patterns were more forced. So is the surface because it looks so beautiful that the demand became higher and higher. So the production became more commercial. That's the quality decreased. And also we see towards the end, the motifs and patterns are simply made by mold stuff rather than meticulously carving. Of course, in Korea, the culture started to vary, though they have borrowed at the beginning the Chinese culture has introduced. However, they have developed their own society. For example, this later dynasty, meaning Joseon dynasty, 18th or 19th century large soldier jar, simplifies a moon jar, but it has never been made in the perfect shape because you have to connect the half moon together, connect both, while connecting both, you usually leave a trace of the connection. And also, the lace, the white, so-called white lace is not entirely white because of the technique and also the aesthetics at that period of time. People prefer things that show a little bit peaceful feeling. All this only until the early 20th century, the Japanese scholars came to Korea and quite enjoyed the peaceful feeling, fitting wabi-sabi environment of Japanese traditional tea ceremony. And so those white lace wear from 18th, 19th century became very popular. I'm pretty sure you all have seen some great examples from the British Museum or V&A Museum, the moon jar from 18th or 19th century, or even contemporary moon jars. Actually, talking about moon jar, this is entirely contemporary Japanese stoneware, referring to the Asian shigaraki ware. Moon jar, the Korean moon jar in this shape. This is Japanese, just because it's shigaraki ware. It is created by contemporary Japanese master potter called Juzimura Shiro. He's still quite active with his signature with the eye on the top. He uses a traditional method, however, it rather leave the pot in the kiln and let the runs and chemical reactions happen. So the wood ash lays deposit on the surface to create this random effect. Therefore, every single one looks entirely unique. Talking about shigaraki ware, the tradition came from rather 15th, 16th century. This is the older one. The older one, I believe this is from early 20th century or 19th century. You can see this is where it's not entirely symmetric, but this is the high Japanese aesthetics. Everything fits in that wabi-sabi style, and I call it imperfect perfection. It is imperfect, but it is perfect for that environment. So Shigaraki ware in the 15th, 16th century was among a small group of very popular civil healers producing the ceramics for normal people's use, not for the court, but still higher class nobilities still prefer Chinese porcelain with perfect glaze. And those were fed in the kiln, and usually the ash contains a lot of silica, so you have the white with temperature, with the chemical reactions happening in the kiln, you end up with a whole variety of colors, mainly ranging between orange, red-orange, and brownish, with white silica deposit on the surface. And while talking about wabi-sabi, it's a kind of environment that Japanese people prefer to create when they sit together in the garden, or more classically in a tea ceremony. They will sit down and with some imperfect ceramics around, or some perfect Chinese, highly appreciated Chinese ceramics or porcelain around. They would drink tea and they would just sit down peacefully and enjoy the nature. So that's why, by the first look, Korean and Japanese ceramics may not appear that grand, but this fashion has to be truly appreciated by us if we do understand that kind of feeling that the nature is. That's why during after Second World War, these Japanese and Korean ceramics, especially the contemporary ceramics referring to the traditional method, have become very popular and highly appreciated by collectors from Western and Eastern world. I hope so far I've been convincing you that a lot of things that come from Eastern Asia, China, Korea, Japan, can be rooted from somewhere in the West, and vice versa. And also, things that appear super ancient and old still are connected with contemporary art. All contemporary art are rooted in the tradition in the early traditions of making art. Well, thank you so much for watching these special talks at the Chelsea Antiques and the Fine Art Fair. And later on, I will collect all the videos and send all of you who sign up to my newsletters, so that some of you who missed the lectures can catch up with them. Well, thank you again the lovely team from the organizer for videoing and broadcasting. And I hope you enjoy the fair, and you hope you continue to enjoy the upcoming springtime. And please do come to Wang Shanshan at St. James. And we will sit down and appreciate early Asian art together. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.